They didn't just ignore my gift. My daughter-in-law picked it up off the table, turned it over like she was inspecting something from a yard sale, and said, "Is this a joke?" My son stood right beside her. He didn't say a word, not one. I took the envelope back, walked through the banquet hall past the ice sculpture and the string quartet and the guests who'd never once learned my last name, and I handed it to the valet kid smoking a cigarette by the parking garage. 20 minutes later, my son came running out barefoot on the asphalt, screaming my name like the building was on fire. But nothing was burning. Not yet. I need to go back a bit. I'm 63 years old. I've worked with my hands most of my life, first in cabinetry, then later running a small contracting business out of Covington, Kentucky. Nothing fancy. I built things for people who couldn't afford architects but still wanted something solid. Porches that didn't sag, shelves that held weight, stair rails that wouldn't wobble when your kids grabbed them running down on Christmas morning. My wife, Ruth, she passed 11 years ago. Pancreatic. Fast and cruel, the way that disease always is. After she died, I kept working because stopping would have meant sitting in that house hearing her voice in every creak of the floor. My son Kevin was 24 when we lost her. Old enough to grieve like a man, but young enough to still need his mother in ways he'd never admit. We got closer for a while after the funeral. Sunday dinners. Phone calls that actually lasted more than 2 minutes. He helped me reshingle the garage roof one October, and we didn't talk much, but the silence felt honest. Then he met Diane. I don't say that with bitterness. I say it the way you'd say. Then the weather changed. It just did. Diane came from money, not old money, not generational money, but the kind that arrives fast and gets loud. Her father owned a chain of dental clinics across 3 states. Her mother decorated their house like a magazine shoot and redecorated it every 14 months. Diane grew up believing that taste was a currency and that people who didn't spend visibly weren't really living. She was smart. Oh, give her that. She had a master's degree in communications and a way of making you feel like every word you said was being graded on a rubric you hadn't seen. Kevin changed around her, not all at once. Slowly, the way wood warps when moisture gets in. He stopped coming to Sunday dinners. He started correcting my grammar in front of people. He bought shirts with brands on the cuffs that I'd never heard of and couldn't pronounce. When I visited their apartment in Cincinnati, Diane would smile at me the way people smile at a stain they've decided to live with. She never asked about my work. She never asked about Ruth. She asked about my plans, which I later realized meant, when are you going to stop being this version of yourself? I kept showing up anyway. That's what fathers do. You don't stop building the bridge just because the other side isn't laying any planks. When Kevin proposed to Diane, I found out through a text message, not even a call. Just a photo of the ring on her finger and a single line, she said yes. I stared at that photo for a long time. The ring looked like it cost more than my truck. I wrote back, "Congratulations, son, I'm proud of you." He replied with a thumbs-up emoji. That was it. The wedding was planned for June at a resort outside Lexington. 200 guests. Open bar. A band flown in from Nashville. Custom menus printed on linen paper. I wasn't consulted on any of it, which was fine. I wasn't expected to contribute to the planning, but I was expected to contribute to the cost. Kevin called me one evening, voice careful and rehearsed, and explained that Diane's parents were covering most of it, but there were gaps. Could I help with the rehearsal dinner? I said yes without asking the number. He told me anyway. $14,000. I paid it. I didn't complain. I didn't mention that $14,000 was what I'd earned building a sunroom for the Aldersons last spring, working through a torn rotator cuff and 2 weeks of rain. I just transferred the money and went back to sanding a set of oak bookshelves for a school teacher in Erlanger who wanted them done before her daughter's birthday. The weeks before the wedding, Diane's mother, Patricia, called me once in 4 months of planning. She wanted to confirm my suit measurements for the rental, not whether I had opinions, not whether I wanted to say a few words at the reception. My measurements. I gave them. She thanked me the way you thank a delivery driver and hung up. The rehearsal dinner went fine. I sat at the far end of the table beside Diane's uncle. A man named Glenn who sold insurance and talked about it the way some people talk about religion. He asked what I did. I told him. He nodded and changed the subject to his boat. The morning of the wedding, I got dressed in my hotel room alone. I wore a suit I'd bought myself, not the rental. Navy blue, simple, well-fitted. Ruth had always said I looked best in navy. I put a small envelope in my inside breast pocket. It sat right against my chest, light in weight, but heavy in what it carried. I'd been building what was inside that envelope for almost 11 years. Not building the way Diane's family built things, not with flash or fanfare, but the way my father taught me and his father taught him. Quietly, deliberately, one small deposit at a time in an account Kevin didn't know about, at a credit union Ruth and I had used since we were 25 years old. The ceremony was beautiful. I'll say that honestly. The venue had tall windows that let in the afternoon light, and the trees outside were that deep green that only comes in mid-June in Kentucky. Diane looked stunning. Kevin looked nervous but happy. When the officiant asked who gives this woman, Diane's father stood up in a suit that probably cost more than my car and said his line with the confidence of a man who'd never had to rehearse sincerity. No one asked me to stand. No one asked me to stand. I sat in the second row because the first was reserved for Diane's family and her sorority sisters. I didn't mind. I've spent most of my life in the second row of something. You learn to see more from there. At the reception, the band played songs I didn't know. The food was French, I think. Small plates arranged like artwork. I ate slowly and watched. Kevin danced with Diane. Diane danced with her father. Patricia floated between tables like a campaign manager working a room. Guests laughed, drank, posed for photos with a hashtag printed on little signs at every table. I waited for the right moment, the way you wait for glue to cure. You don't rush it. You don't force it. You just know when it's ready. After the first dance and the toasts and the cake cutting, I made my way to the head table. Kevin was standing with Diane, her arm looped through his, both of them glowing with that specific kind of joy that only exists when you haven't yet realized how expensive happiness gets once the music stops. I have something for you, I said. I pulled the envelope from my pocket. Nothing fancy. A plain white envelope, slightly creased from sitting against my heartbeat all day. Kevin took it and started to open it. Diane leaned in, watching. She expected a check, probably, or a card with something sentimental inside that she could photograph for the thank you posts. What she saw instead was a small booklet, pale blue cover, dog-eared corners, the logo of a credit union that hadn't updated its branding since 1987. Diane's eyebrows went up. She looked at Kevin. Kevin looked at me, then back at the booklet. "What is this?" Diane asked, not curious. "Diagnostic." "Open it," I said. Kevin flipped it open. I watched his eyes move down the page, then stop, then move again, then stop again, then move again, then stop again. Diane snatched it from his hands. She scanned the numbers, the dates, the careful rows of deposits made month after month, year after year, in amounts that would mean nothing to her family but meant everything to mine. She closed it. "Is this a joke?" she said. I didn't answer right away. I looked at Kevin. He was staring at the tablecloth. Diane held the booklet up between two fingers like it was something she'd found stuck to the bottom of her shoe. "You brought a savings passbook to our wedding?" "A passbook?" Patricia appeared beside her daughter as if summoned by the frequency of disdain. She glanced at the booklet. "Oh, for heaven's sake," she said. "What is that, a coupon book?" Someone nearby laughed. "Short, sharp, automatic." Diane set the booklet on the table and slid it toward me. "This is embarrassing," she said quietly. "Please take it back before someone sees." I looked at my son. He still hadn't spoken. His jaw was tight. His eyes were on the floor. "Kevin," I said. He looked up. "Do you want me to take it back?" He opened his mouth. Diane's hand landed on his arm. He closed it again. That was the answer. Not the words, the hand, the silence, the way he let someone else decide what his father's gift was worth. I picked up the booklet. I held it for a moment, feeling the weight of 11 years of discipline pressed into those pages. Every deposit I'd made on a Friday afternoon after closing a job, every time I could have spent it on a new saw or a truck repair or just a decent meal out, and chose instead to add another line to that ledger because I believed my son would one day need something solid beneath him when the pretty things stopped being enough. "All right," I said. I put it in my pocket. I walked through the reception hall, past the ice sculpture shaped like a swan, past the dessert table with its tower of macarons in colors I didn't know the names of, past the photographer adjusting a light and a server balancing a tray of champagne. I pushed open the heavy door and stepped into the evening air. It smelled like cut grass and warm pavement. The sun had just set, and the sky was that bruised purple you get in Kentucky in summer, the kind that makes you feel like the whole world is holding its breath. By the parking garage entrance, a young kid in a valet vest sat on a concrete post, smoking. He looked maybe 19. Thin tie, scuffed shoes, tired eyes. He straightened up when he saw me coming. "Need your car, sir?" "No," I said. I pulled the envelope from my pocket and held it out. "Take this." He frowned. "Sir, it's yours. Don't open it here. Go home first. And if anyone comes asking, tell them I said it was a gift. A real one." He looked at the envelope, then at me. Something in my expression must have told him I wasn't drunk or crazy. He took it slowly, the way you take something from a stranger's hand on a dark road, half expecting a catch. "Thank you," he said, making it a question. I nodded once and went back inside. I sat at my assigned table, the one farthest from the head table, the one beside the kitchen doors where servers came and went with rhythmic efficiency. I loosened my tie. I folded my hands. And I waited. It took 22 minutes. I know because I watched the clock on the far wall, the analog kind with Roman numerals that the venue probably bought to match the rustic theme. 22 minutes of champagne and laughter and music that blurred into a single hum around me like I was sitting inside a beehive. Then the side door opened and the ballet kid walked in. He didn't walk the way he'd walked outside. His posture had changed. His face had changed. He looked like someone who'd been slapped by good news and hadn't figured out how to stand up straight again. He looked around the room, overwhelmed, then spotted me. He started toward my table, and the coordinator, a woman in a headset with the permanent expression of someone defusing bombs, intercepted him immediately. They spoke in low voices. The kid pointed at me. The coordinator looked over, eyes narrowing. She spoke into her headset. Two servers paused mid-stride, watching. I didn't move. The kid broke away from the coordinator and approached my table, envelope in hand. His fingers were shaking. "Sir," he said, voice barely above a whisper, "I opened it, in my car. I looked at the pages." "I know," I said, "there's a lot of money in here." "I know that too. I can't keep this." I looked at him. "Why not?" He swallowed. "Because it's not mine. Because this is someone's whole life in here. I can see the dates. You've been putting money in this thing since before I was born. The tables nearest to us have gone quiet. Not everyone, not yet, but enough. Conversations dropped like dominoes, one by one, as people turned to see why a kid in a valet vest was standing in the middle of a wedding reception looking like he'd seen a ghost. Kevin noticed next. I saw him straighten at the head table, say something to Diane, and start walking toward us. Diane followed, her smile already sharpening into damage control mode. Patricia wasn't far behind, clutching her phone like a weapon. Kevin reached us first. "Dad, what's going on?" I looked at him calmly. "Your gift found its way back." Diane arrived and her eyes locked onto the booklet in the kid's hand. The color left her face in real time, like watching paint wash off in rain. "Where did you get that?" she demanded. The kid flinched. "He gave it to me. Outside." I thought maybe it was a mistake. "Give it here," Diane said, reaching. The kid pulled back instinctively. "Ma'am, I think you should look at it first. There's a lot in here. My uncle does accounting." I called him. He said this kind of account, you can't just... You called someone? Patricia's voice cut through like a blade. You showed our private information to a stranger? It's not your information, I said quietly. Every head turned. Patricia stared at me. Excuse me, it's my account, I said. My name, my deposits, my 40 years of work, and it was my gift to my son, until it was sent back. The room had gone fully still now. The band had trailed off one instrument at a time, the way a heartbeat slows before something important happens. 200 people sat in their rented chairs, champagne warming in their hands, watching a scene that nobody had rehearsed. Kevin's face was red. Dad, can we do this somewhere else? We could have, I said, if your wife had opened it somewhere else. Diane's mouth tightened. I didn't know what it was. You didn't ask, I said. You decided. A murmur rippled through the nearest tables. An older man in the third row, someone from my side of the guest list, one of the few, leaned forward and squinted at the booklet. Is that a credit union passbook? He asked, to nobody in particular. His wife nodded slowly. My mother had one of those. She kept it in her Bible. Another guest, a woman in her 70s, with reading glasses hanging from a beaded chain, spoke up from 2 tables over. Those don't expire, do they? No, ma'am, the valet kid said. They don't. Diane turned on Kevin. Handle this, she hissed. Kevin stood between us, paralyzed. He looked at me, then at Diane, then at the roomful of people who were no longer pretending not to listen. Dad, he said, I didn't know. I didn't look at it. I know you didn't, I said. That's the problem. Something shifted in the room when I said that. Not anger. Recognition. The older guests understood first because they always do. They'd been there. They'd watched their own children drift into lives that had no room for where they came from. They recognized the weight of what I was holding not in my hands, because my hands were empty now, but in my voice. Diane's father appeared, buttoning his jacket like he was walking into a board meeting. Mark, he said to me, using my first name the way you'd address a subcontractor. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Why don't we step into the lobby and sort this out? There's nothing to sort, I said. I gave my son a gift. His wife called it a joke. I gave it to someone who needed it more. That person had the decency to bring it back. That's the whole story. The valet kid nodded, backing me up without meaning to. Diane's father cleared his throat. The amount in that account is none of your concern, I said. He blinked. People like him didn't get interrupted. I stood up, not fast, not angry, just the way you stand when you're done sitting. I looked at Kevin one more time. Your mother started that account the year you were born, I said. She put in $15 the day we brought you home from the hospital. $15. It was all we had left after the copay. She told me, we start now, so he never starts from zero. I kept that promise. Every month, through her chemo, through the funeral, through the hero, when you stopped calling. That booklet isn't a passbook. It's a record of 2 people who never stopped believing their son would need them, even when he stopped believing he did. The room didn't move. Kevin's eyes filled, not dramatically, the way it happens in movies, but slowly, the way it happens when something you've been refusing to feel finally pushes past the wall you built around it. Diane's hand dropped from his arm. I didn't know, Kevin whispered. You didn't look, I said again, gently this time. The valet kid stepped forward. Sir, he said, I'll give it back. I just didn't want it to disappear. I looked at him, this 19-year-old stranger who'd done what my own son hadn't. He'd paid attention. What's your name? I asked. Tyler, he said. Tyler, he said. Tyler, he said. Tyler, you did the right thing, and I meant what I said outside. It was a gift. I can't take it, sir. Then give it to Kevin, I said. It was always meant for him. Tyler held the booklet out toward my son. Kevin stared at it. The room watched. 200 people who'd come for steak and dancing were now watching a man decide whether to take his dead mother's love out of a stranger's hands. Kevin reached out and took it. He opened the cover, and his thumb traced the first entry. June 14th, $15. The day he was born. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Diane stood beside him, arms crossed, chin lifted, but her eyes were wet. Not from guilt, I don't think. From the sudden understanding that she'd thrown away something she didn't have the vocabulary to value. Patricia started to speak. The woman with the reading glasses, the one from 2 tables over, cut her off. "Let the boy read," she said firmly. "It won't kill you to be quiet for a minute." Patricia's mouth closed. Kevin turned the pages slowly. Each one told a story he'd never heard. A deposit on his 8th birthday. A deposit the week he graduated high school. A deposit the month Ruth was diagnosed. Smaller that time, but still there. A deposit 3 days after the funeral. A deposit 3 days after the funeral. A deposit every single month after that, steady as a heartbeat, for 11 years. When he reached the last page, he found something tucked into the back fold. A small piece of paper, lined, torn from a notebook. Ruth's handwriting. I knew what it said because I'd read it 1,000 times. She'd written it during her last week when her hands could barely hold the pen. Kevin read it silently. His shoulders shook once, then again. Then he pressed the booklet against his chest and looked at me. "Dad," he said, "I'm sorry. I didn't say it was okay because it wasn't. Not yet, but I nodded because that's what you do when your son finally sees you." "What does it say?" Diane asked, reaching for the paper. Kevin pulled away. Not aggressively. Gently. The way you protect something that belongs to someone who can't protect it anymore. "It says," he started, then stopped. He swallowed. "It says, don't let the noise drown out the people who built you. They may be quiet, but they're the only ones still standing when the music stops." The room exhaled. Someone at a far table started crying softly. The old man who'd recognized the passbook removed his glasses and pinched the bridge of his nose. The band's drummer set down his sticks. I picked up my jacket from the back of the chair. I straightened my cuffs. I looked at Kevin and said, "Enjoy your night, son." Then I turned to Tyler. "Walk with me." He nodded, confused but willing. We walked out together through the heavy doors, past the swan ice sculpture that had started to melt, past the macarons nobody was eating anymore, into the warm Kentucky night where the cicadas were louder than any band and the stars didn't need a hashtag. In the parking lot, I stopped by my truck. Tyler stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, looking like he'd accidentally walked into someone else's life and wasn't sure how to walk back out. "How old are you?" I asked. 19. "You in school?" "Community college. Part-time. I'm trying to save up for the full program. Mechanical engineering." I opened my truck door and reached into the glove box. I pulled out a business card, plain white, black ink, just my name and number and the words Covington Custom Carpentry. "Call me Monday," I said. "I need help on a job site. Pays $15 an hour to start. Cash on Fridays." Tyler looked at the card, then at me. "Sir, you don't have to do that." "I know I don't. That's exactly why I'm doing it." He smiled then, not a big smile, just enough to let me know something had landed. I drove home with the windows down. The highway was empty, and the air smelled like summer and dust and something I hadn't felt in years. Not happiness exactly. Lighter than that. Relief. The kind that comes when you finally stop carrying something that was never yours to carry alone. Kevin called the next morning at 6 a.m. I was already up, coffee in hand, watching the fog lift off the backfield. "Can we talk?" he said. "Just us? We met at a diner on Route 9, the kind with vinyl booths and bottomless coffee and a waitress who calls everyone honey. He came alone. No Diane. No Patricia. Just my son in a wrinkled t-shirt with circles under his eyes that told me he hadn't slept. He set the passbook on the table between us. "I read every page," he said. "Twice." I nodded. "I didn't know Mom wrote that note." "She wrote it the last Tuesday she was conscious. She made me promise to put it in the back of the book. She said you'd find it when you needed it." He pressed his palms against his eyes. "I've been awful," he said. "You've been lost," I said. "There's a difference." We talked for 2 hours. He asked about Ruth. He asked about the early deposits, the ones from before he was born, the ones Ruth made from her job at the public library when she was earning $9 an hour and still found a way to set aside something for a child who didn't exist yet. He asked me to forgive him. I told him forgiveness wasn't a single moment. It was a direction you walked in together. Before he left, he hugged me in the parking lot. Not the quick, back-patting kind. The kind where you hold on because you're afraid if you let go you'll lose something you just found again. Weeks later, I heard that Kevin and Diane had a long conversation, then several more. I don't know the details and I didn't ask. Some things aren't my business, but I know that Kevin started calling me on Sundays again. Short calls at first, then longer ones. Then one Sunday he showed up at my door with a bag of groceries and cooked dinner in my kitchen the way Ruth used to, badly, lovingly, with too much garlic and not enough salt. Tyler started working for me that Monday. He showed up 10 minutes early. He learned fast. He didn't talk much, which I appreciated, but when he did talk, he said things that mattered. By August, he was framing walls on his own. By October, I'd raised him to 18 an hour, and he'd re-enrolled full-time. Diane never apologized. I didn't expect her to. Some people can't say sorry because it would require admitting that their entire system of valuing things might be wrong. But she stopped looking through me at family dinners. She started using my last name when she introduced me to people. Small things. The kind that don't photograph well but matter more than anything that does. Patricia sent me a Christmas card in December. Inside, she'd written, "Thank you for the lesson." No signature. I pinned it to my refrigerator next to a photo of Ruth holding Kevin the day he was born. If there's anything I learned in 63 years of living, it's this. Respect isn't something you earn by being loud. It's something you build, the same way you build anything worth keeping. Slowly, with your hands, one honest day at a time. And when someone tries to tell you that what you built is worthless, don't argue. Don't shout. Just wait. Because the truth doesn't need volume, it just needs time. I'd like to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and tell me. And if this story reminded you of someone, maybe someone who built something quietly while the world looked the other way, share it with them. Sometimes the people who need to hear it most are the ones who've stopped expecting anyone to notice. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, subscribe to the channel. We've got many more to share, and I'm glad you're here.